What did you specifically say about verse 13 of Romans chapter 1? It seemed to be absolutely central.
I tell you, this is massively big.
I thought you said an indefinite, what did you say?
There is an ambiguous antecedent, and obviously this is crucial for biblical interpretation.
All right, guys, Romans 1:13, there's an ambiguous antecedent.
1:13 is central to your rebuttal of my position, and I do not understand why. Can you please explain why? How do you get Jews? The term Jews doesn't appear, right?
Yeah, that's why it's ambiguous.
And so when you say ambiguous antecedent of what?
Talk about what we discussed at the debate. It's something that I brought out in my opening statement that James had a lot of questions about, which is the ambiguous antecedent of Romans 1:13. Ambiguous antecedent is a pronoun which has two or more possible antecedents, so person, place, or thing, represented by a pronoun. Okay, I see this in chapter 1, verse 13. The context then helps define what that antecedent is talking about. The ambiguous antecedent exists beyond 1:13. I plan to do an entire podcast on this issue, but I want to clarify for now that I argue from the point of the overall context of 8 chapters, not only 3 verses.
I have never heard that perspective ever before in my life. I have never heard Romans chopped up into pieces like that ever before in my life. I don't know anybody in church history. It's funny. Well, all of church history had this position and you got a different position, but I'm going to give you a presentation that's different than all of church history. Seems to be an inconsistent position to take.
If you go back and watch my podcasts, you will know that this new perspective that I presented at the debate is aligned with what I have been teaching and expressing over the months in several of my other videos. Look at my Ephesians video, my John 6 video. Some of these themes that I've been seeing and connecting is what I've been tracking over the past 6 months, and it's really brought to light what I'm now seeing in the letter to the Romans as well. We're going to get into some specifics. I'm going to provide some more extensive videos on how this is all connected and put together. This, again, new perspective, I don't think is actually a new perspective. I think this is a lost perspective. And I think that needs to be key, because even though I've been kind of challenged that this is something that no one's ever brought out before, I recognize that even Christian friends like Leighton and Kevin and Alana have yet to say that they agree with this. Leighton even did a debate review and said it was a nuanced approach.
That Romans is kind of organized that way, that he's first addressing the Jewish issues, which he clearly is in the first 8 chapters. I probably wouldn't have stated it quite as dogmatically as, these first 8 chapters are just to, there's no make it sound like there's no application to the Gentiles or something like that, because I know that that isn't nuanced well for an audience that's not following what you're saying, especially when you got a debater who's not willing to stillman you and to take you for what you mean.
Keith Foskey, who might be my new favorite Calvinist, did a review on the debate and discussed what I shared.
Especially since some of it's Dave Hunt's argumentation. N.T. Wright was asked one time, what do you think about predestination? And so he goes to Ephesians 1 and Romans 8, and he talks about, and his argument is kind of the same thing. He says, well, I think what you have in Romans 8 is a condensed telling of the story of Israel. That's the golden chain. Those whom he predestined, these he also called. These he goes, that what that really is that's a condensed version talking about Israel. And I was like, okay, but it's not just that, is it?
Paul is referencing the Jews. He is actually referencing them in first person. And then he stops doing that in the second half of the letter of Romans. So chapters 9 through 16, he never refers to the Jews in first person any longer, but instead starts communicating to the Gentiles in first person. So I've got a lot of things that I want to share with you regarding this position that's going to be really exciting. And I'm going to be doing a 10-part series on this finding in the book of Romans. So we're going to go through the whole book of Romans, and we're going to do a 10-part video series. It's going to be done really nice. It's going to have some scholarly support and work behind it. It's going to be a really big project, and it's going to be really exciting. And so I hope that you'll be able to tune into that. A very respected language expert, Dr. L. Garza, listened to the debate and recently affirmed the Jewish nature of Romans. Listen to his clip here.
One email I did get that I think is important is discussing the context of Romans 8 and Dr. Garza regarding the context of Romans 8, 9, and 10. How is this a Jewish context or background? I think it's referring to the context. It's kind of hard sometimes to make out the emails, but that's I think it's referring to, and I think it's because Jason brought out the fact that in part of Romans it has a Jewish audience to it. It's not completely Jewish audience. I mean, Paul does address Gentiles, and he says, "I'm speaking to you Gentiles" later on in Romans 11. But in starting from 7, though, he does talk about speaking to those who know the Torah. The terminology being used here is found elsewhere in Romans that identify who Paul's speaking to. This is how you do biblical exegesis. This is how you connect verses. This is how you don't just take out of context. You read what Paul's saying. Do you remember Paul always said, to the Jew first. To the Jew first. Jesus made it clear in the Gospels that I've come only to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. He told his disciples, do not go to the Gentiles or the Samaritans, because I've come to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. So there was a fulfillment of messianic prophecy to the Jew first, as prophesied in the Old Testament, that the Messiah is fulfilling before his death, burial, and resurrection.
One of the resources that I forgot to mention at the debate is a book called Two-Part Romans by a man named Dr. Brent Lay. He's a retired minister out of Tennessee, and he has a book. I'm going to have a link in the description box below so that you can check it out. It's very inexpensive, and it kind of lays the foundations, probably the best. Now, this book I think has been in publishing since around 2017, somewhere around there. It was a very helpful resource as I started to explore some of these things. And again, it's just there's more and more people that I'm finding that actually do hold to this position. It's not the predominant one. That's why I think it's a lost position, and I feel like it's starting to resurface, and I think there's a lot of credibility and validity to it. I would encourage you, if you're interested in learning about it, to go to Amazon and pick up that book. It's very inexpensive, and it's a quick and easy read, and it just walks through the book of Romans. I've actually talked with Dr. Lay, and I intend to hopefully have him on the podcast at some point down the line. He's going through some medical things right now, and so he's going through some surgery, but I hope to get him included in part of this as well. Well, guys, I am super excited about this 10-part series. I hope that you'll stick around for it. I would encourage you to share this video with friends and family, whoever that you think might find this beneficial, so that they can subscribe and they can know when this series does launch. It's going to take some time to get things done, but I'm going to be working on this on the back end and trying to get some other stuff more on the front end, live streams and things like that. It'll be easier to do as I'm preparing for this 10-part series. It's going to be a really, really cool thing. So I'd encourage you to pick up a copy. I'll leave a link in the description box below for you to take a look. I'm excited to go to share how this is all woven together, and I want you guys to see this and provide good pushback. Once I bring this out, I hope that you are able to do your own studies. Like I've said before in all of my videos, that it's not about just adhering to someone's theology. It's not just about listening to what I'm saying or what I believe. I want you to go and be a good Berean yourself. So thank you so much for watching this shorter video. And again, I'm excited to go into exploring this deeper with you. So until next time, go be a good Berean. Thanks so much. God bless.